I never imagined it would come to this, but I'm sitting here, writing this, feeling like my world is falling apart. My name is Jason, I'm 35, and I've been married to my wife, Emily, for 5 years now. We've known each other since 2016, and our relationship was strong, at least I thought it was. We have a beautiful 3-year-old son, Max, who's my world. My wife, Emily, is 30 and works as a nurse, tough job, long hours, and a lot of emotional strain. I've always admired her strength and resilience, which is why I've done everything I can to support her, to make her life as easy as possible. I even turned down a promotion last year because it would require moving to another city, and I knew that would affect her health. Her health issues, the ones that had been so consuming over the past couple of years, made it clear to me that I had to sacrifice for the family. But now, all that sacrifice feels like it was for nothing. It all started innocently enough. Max, as any toddler would, loves to play games on my phone or Emily's tablet. One evening, after he finished his usual round of games on Emily's tablet, I went to close it, plug it in for charging, and that's when I saw it, a message notification. The name on the screen immediately stood out to me, Chris. She'd mentioned him before, but I'd never really thought much of it. He was an old co-worker, someone who seemed to get along with her better than I did, or at least that's how I saw it from the little she'd ever told me about him. But there was something about the way she'd said his name that always felt off, something that triggered my gut. I didn't want to snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. I tapped on the message to see what was going on. I couldn't help myself. I needed to know if there was something I was missing. What I saw made my blood run cold. The first message was from her, "Good night butthead." I froze. That was definitely not something I'd ever heard her say to anyone other than me, but it didn't stop there. The next few were just as bad, "Good morning red heart," followed by a series of emojis and playful banter that should have been reserved for, well, me. Then, I saw it, messages where Emily was bashing me. Bashing the very man who had worked his ass off to support her, to support us. She'd told Chris that I didn't support her, that I didn't put her first. She told him I put my job before her, that I was neglecting her, that I was a burden to her health. It hit me like a punch to the gut. Everything I had sacrificed for her, for the family, and here she was telling someone else that I was the problem. And Chris? He didn't just listen. He validated her. He bashed me right along with her. It was like I wasn't even in the room. He mocked me, called me lazy, said I was stupid for not seeing that she needed more than I was willing to give. The worst part was, she was letting him. She was letting him insult me, to the man I thought was a friend of hers. But that wasn't even the worst part. The worst part was when I saw a message from her, saying she had to lie to me. She'd told Chris that when I FaceTimed her, it wasn't really her, it was just our son. She was lying to him and to me, and to top it all off, she was hiding notifications now. She thought I wouldn't notice, but I did. The veil was slipping, and I was seeing the cracks in the facade she'd built. I'm not one to let anger control me, but this was different. The realization hit me like a freight train. All these years of supporting her, of prioritizing her health and well-being, all of it was nothing but a show. I couldn't stop shaking as I sat there, staring at the messages, wondering how long this had been going on. How long had she been texting him behind my back, letting him fill her head with all this nonsense about how I was a failure as a husband? How long had she been letting him take my place? I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, the heat of anger rising. My head swirled with thoughts of what to do next. I thought of confronting her right then and there, demanding answers, but I didn't. I couldn't. I had to keep it together. We were about to go on vacation, and I didn't want to make a scene in front of our son. But deep down, I knew I couldn't ignore this. Not anymore. I couldn't help but wonder if I was blind all along. Had she been cheating on me in some way? Was this the start of something more? I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing: this wasn't just harmless flirting anymore. It wasn't just funny texts. She had crossed a line, and now I had to figure out what to do with that knowledge. What would it mean for our marriage? Could I trust her again? Could she even be trusted? The lies were already stacking up, and I was drowning in the weight of it all. But there was no going back now. As I sat there, staring at the messages, I felt a decision starting to form in my mind. It wasn't going to be easy, but I knew I had to act before this all spiraled out of control. I had to take control of my own life again. The days leading up to our vacation were a blur. On the outside, everything seemed normal. Emily acted as if nothing was wrong, even as I felt like my world was crumbling beneath me. We packed for our trip with Max, joking and laughing as if everything was fine. But on the inside, I was seething, quietly watching her every move, every glance at her phone. I couldn't ignore the fact that something was very wrong. The night before we were supposed to leave, I decided I needed some answers. I couldn't keep pretending I didn't know what was going on, but I couldn't confront her directly yet, not without more evidence. She was good at lying, and I didn't want to make a scene just yet. I decided to take a different route. I knew she'd be in the bathroom for a while. She always takes her time getting ready. While she was busy, I grabbed her phone, unlocked it without hesitation, and went straight to the messaging app. My heart was racing, but I was determined to find out what was going on. I was prepared for anything, even if it meant seeing something that would destroy me. I scrolled through the messages again, looking for anything new. That's when I saw it. A new conversation thread, one I hadn't seen before. This one wasn't with Chris, but with someone named David. At first, I thought it was just another friend, maybe someone she worked with. But then I saw the content of the messages, and my stomach dropped. David wasn't just a friend. He was someone she was clearly flirting with, but this was different. The messages were loaded with intimacy, things I'd never seen her say to anyone else. She was texting him things like, "I can't stop thinking about you and can't wait to see you tonight." My pulse hammered in my ears, and I felt lightheaded as I read more. The real gut punch came when I read this. I wish Jason would just stop being so busy. He doesn't understand that I need someone who can be there for me, who can listen to me, who can make me feel special. I wanted to smash the phone. I wanted to throw it across the room. I wanted to scream at her, to demand answers, to confront her about everything. But I had to stay calm. I had to think this through. I couldn't just jump to conclusions without understanding the full picture. But one thing was clear: Emily was not just flirting with Chris. She was actively seeking out attention from someone else. Someone new. Someone she was clearly getting emotionally attached to. I heard the bathroom door click open. Emily was done getting ready. My heart sank into my stomach. I quickly locked her phone again, put it back where I found it, and sat down on the bed, trying to calm my racing thoughts. She walked in, casually humming to herself. She looked at me, smiling. "Ready for tomorrow?" she asked, as if nothing had just shattered my world. I nodded, forcing a smile. "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's just get through this trip. We'll have fun." I said the words, but I wasn't sure I even believed them anymore. The lies she'd been telling me, the way she'd been hiding her messages, the way she'd manipulated me into thinking I was the one at fault, it was all eating me alive. And then, in that moment, it happened. The twist I hadn't seen coming. As we were finishing up packing, Emily looked at me with a sudden intensity I'd never seen before. She hesitated for a moment, then spoke, her voice almost cold. "Jason, I need to tell you something. I've been thinking a lot lately, and I know I've been distant. I don't feel happy anymore. I think we need a break. I need to focus on myself for a while." Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I was stunned. A break? Was she seriously saying this right now? After everything? After everything I'd done for her, for our family? My mind was racing, but I kept my voice steady. "A break? Are you serious? You've been talking to David and Chris like this, and now you want a break?" Her eyes widened, but only for a second. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice defensively rising. "I'm just telling you how I feel. Don't turn this into something it's not." I couldn't believe it. She was denying it, acting as if I was the crazy one, the one who had no right to feel betrayed. This was manipulation at its finest. I tried to keep my cool. "I know about David, Emily. I know about the messages, the things you've been saying. And I know about Chris, too. Don't lie to me anymore. Don't act like I'm the one in the wrong here." Her face twisted for a moment, and she looked almost guilty. But then it passed, and she regained her composure. "You're overreacting, Jason. It's just harmless texting. Nothing's going on. You're just paranoid because you've been working so much." I was seething inside. She was gaslighting me, but instead of confronting her any further, I decided to hold back. I wasn't going to let her twist the narrative. She didn't know it yet, but this was the beginning of my plan. I was done being the one who got manipulated, the one who was supposed to make everything better while she played around with other men. She had just told me everything I needed to know. She wanted a break. She wanted space to figure out what she needed, but I wasn't going to give her the space she thought she could have. Not yet. The vacation we had been so excited for was a sham, and we both knew it. Emily acted as if everything was perfectly fine, but I could see through the mask she was wearing. I had seen the way she looked at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, the way she smiled a little too brightly when I asked her about her day, as if everything was normal. It wasn't normal. It hadn't been normal for months. She was playing games, and I was done being her fool. I didn't want to confront her head on just yet. Not after everything that had happened. I had to be smart about this. I had to be strategic. Emily thought she was the one calling the shots, but I was about to flip the script. She had made her choice. Now it was my turn. I spent the first 2 days of the vacation in a haze of frustration, hiding my anger beneath forced smiles and polite conversation. We visited a few tourist spots, but my mind was elsewhere. I kept imagining Emily texting David or Chris, sending them those sweet messages she'd sent me before. It ate at me, gnawing at the back of my mind. But it was on the third day that the plan started to form in my mind. A little voice inside me kept saying, "Don't let her get away with it. Make her regret this. Let her see what it feels like when the tables are turned." The first step was to make her think I didn't know. I wanted her to think everything was still normal between us. I wanted her to believe I was just the clueless, busy husband who didn't have time to pay attention to the little things. She was going to think that she was in control, but I was already a step ahead. I'd been doing some digging when we returned to the hotel room that night. Emily had left her phone unlocked, thinking I wouldn't notice. It was too perfect. I went straight to the messaging app, opened up the conversation with David, and saw that they'd been talking that afternoon. Her message to him read, "I wish you were here. I'm really feeling lonely tonight." I gritted my teeth as I read the message. She had no idea what was about to happen. I couldn't let her see that I knew everything, so I closed her phone and put it back exactly where she'd left it. I had to play it cool, make sure I didn't slip up. The next day, I started the real plan. I decided I would initiate some distance between us, not because I didn't want her, but because I wanted to show her what life without me might look like. She had been playing with fire for too long, and I needed to remind her who I was, who we were, before she got too comfortable in her fantasy world with David or Chris. I told Emily I was going to take Max out to the pool to give her some alone time. I told her I'd be back in an hour, but instead of going straight to the pool, I left the hotel and found a local bar. I sat down at a booth, ordered a drink, and waited. I wasn't just killing time. I was preparing to send Emily a message she wouldn't forget. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to an old acquaintance, someone I hadn't spoken to in years, Sarah, a woman I used to work with before Emily and I got together. I knew she'd jump at the chance to meet up. She had always been flirty with me back then, and though I'd never acted on it, I knew it wouldn't take much for her to agree to meet me now. My fingers hovered over the keys for a moment, a feeling of satisfaction swelling inside me. The text was simple: "Hey Sarah, I'm in town for a bit, and I'd love to catch up. Let me know if you're free." I hit send and leaned back, feeling a rush of adrenaline. It wasn't the same as what Emily had done, but it was the first step. I was going to make her see how it felt. She thought she could replace me with David? Fine. Let's see how she liked it when she thought I was stepping out of the marriage too. While I waited for Sarah's reply, I checked my phone again. Emily had texted me twice, asking where we were, saying she missed me. I didn't reply immediately. I wanted her to feel that uncertainty, that tightness in her chest. I wasn't going to just bend to her whims anymore. Sarah replied almost instantly. "I'd love to. Let's meet at the cafe near the beach around 7. Perfect. I typed back, "Sounds good. See you there." It was game on. When I returned to the hotel room that afternoon, I made sure to act casual. Emily was sitting on the bed, scrolling through her phone. She looked up when I walked in. "Hey, where'd you guys go? Max was starting to miss you." I smiled. "We had a little adventure. I think he's getting tired now. I told him I'd bring him back to you." She gave me that smile, the one she always gave when she was trying to keep everything smooth and normal. But I could tell she was watching me a little too closely. She must have suspected something was off, but I didn't give her anything to go on. I casually mentioned, "Hey, I'm meeting up with a friend tonight. Thought I'd get a drink, unwind a little. You know, we've been running around with Max all day." She blinked, clearly caught off guard. "A friend? Who?" "Oh, you don't know her. Just someone from my old job. She's in town for a while, and we've been meaning to catch up." There it was, the slight narrowing of her eyes. The first crack in the armor. She quickly recovered, but I saw it. The jealousy creeping in. She tried to play it cool, but I could see the unease in her expression. "I guess that's fine," she said, her voice a little too light. "Have fun, babe." She didn't know it yet, but this was just the beginning. The hours leading up to my meeting with Sarah felt like they stretched on 4 days. I could see Emily's eyes on me every time I moved, like she was trying to catch me in a lie. She kept asking me questions about the friend I was meeting. Where had we worked together? When had we last talked? I answered her casually, even throwing in a little laugh here and there to make it seem like it was all no big deal. But deep down, I knew the game was changing. I left the hotel just as the sun began to set, walking out the door and hearing Emily call out behind me, "Don't be out too late. Max is already in bed, but don't forget we've got breakfast plans in the morning." I didn't look back. I wanted her to know that I wasn't concerned about her anymore. This was for me. The cafe by the beach was small, cozy, and dimly lit. I arrived 5 minutes early, sitting down at a table by the window. I ordered a drink, my heart racing with a mix of excitement and bitterness. It was exhilarating to think about how Emily would react when she realized I wasn't the guy she thought I was anymore. She had no idea what was coming. It wasn't long before Sarah walked in. She was just as I remembered, tall, confident, with that playful smile that I always found irresistible. She spotted me immediately and made her way over with that same flirtatious energy. "Hey, you," she greeted with a wink, leaning down to hug me. "It's been way too long." I smiled, embracing her a little longer than necessary. "Yeah, it really has. How have you been?" "Busy, but good." "And you?" She sat down, giving me a look that told me she already knew what kind of night this was going to be. I had to admit, I liked the attention. "I've been working through some things," I replied, watching her carefully for any signs of hesitation. Sarah knew about Emily and me. She knew I was married. But tonight, I was here for me. I wanted to see how Emily would react, how she'd feel when she thought I was out with another woman. I didn't waste time. I made sure to ask Sarah about her life, her travels, and her relationships, anything to keep her talking while I mulled over the next part of my plan. Emily would be losing her mind by now, wondering why I hadn't texted or returned her calls. She would be racking her brain, imagining the worst, even though she'd been the one to start it all. As I listened to Sarah talk about her recent work projects and the places she'd been, I got a text from Emily. "Where are you? It's getting late. I'm getting worried." I let the message sit there for a moment. Then, I typed a quick reply, "Having a drink with an old friend. I'll be home soon." I didn't rush to send it. Instead, I let the silence between me and Sarah build, letting Emily stew in her uncertainty. I saw Sarah glance at my phone as it buzzed again, and she raised an eyebrow. "Your wife?" "Yeah," I said with a half smile. "She's probably wondering if I'm coming back tonight." Sarah's lips curled into a playful smile. "Well, don't keep her waiting too long. We wouldn't want to make her jealous, would we?" I wasn't sure if it was the alcohol or the tension, but her words felt like the final push. I suddenly wanted Emily to feel the same anxiety, the same worry that I'd felt for months. I wanted her to understand what it felt like to be left in the dark, to feel that pang of doubt creeping up when she realized that the man she thought she controlled had slipped out of her grasp. When I saw Sarah's smile falter just slightly, I knew I had pushed too far. It was time to end this charade. I stood up abruptly, offering her a tight smile. "I'm sorry, I need to get going. Emily's probably wondering where I am. I've had a good time catching up." Sarah looked at me, surprised by my sudden change of attitude. "You sure you don't want to stay? We haven't even gotten to dessert yet." I gave her an apologetic glance. "Maybe next time." I tossed a few bills on the table and left before she could protest. As I walked out of the cafe, I felt that familiar rush of adrenaline. I was playing this game, and I was winning. I texted Emily as I walked back to the hotel. "I'm heading back now. Sorry I didn't reply sooner. Had to catch up." She replied instantly. "Good. Max is asleep, but I'm going to stay up for a while. We need to talk when you get back." I grinned, a little too pleased with myself. She wanted to talk? Fine, let's talk. By the time I got back to the hotel, I knew exactly how I was going to confront her. It wasn't going to be a confrontation in the way she expected. I wasn't going to yell or get emotional. No, this was going to be controlled, methodical. I was done with her games. I opened the door quietly, stepping into the room to find Emily sitting up in bed, her arms crossed, looking like she was waiting for something. She didn't say anything at first. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me, and for the briefest moment, I could almost hear the wheels turning in her head. "Who were you with?" she asked, her voice sharp, but there was a hint of insecurity behind it. "Just someone I used to work with. We caught up." I sat down on the bed, giving her a long look. "What's going on with you, Emily? You've been acting strange lately. You've been texting someone behind my back, telling them everything you've been feeling about me. Do you think I don't notice?" Her face went pale, her lips parted in shock. She wasn't expecting me to call her out so directly. Who are you talking about?" she stammered, but I could see the guilt in her eyes. She wasn't fooling anyone. I looked her squarely in the eye. "David, Emily, the guy you've been texting behind my back. You didn't think I'd find out?" Her mouth opened and closed, but she couldn't find the words. The guilt was written all over her face. "You've been cheating on me," I said, my voice low and steady, "but you're not the only one with secrets." The silence in the room was suffocating. Emily stared at me, wide-eyed, mouth agape, as if she couldn't comprehend what I had just said. I could see her mind racing, trying to come up with some excuse, some explanation, but there was nothing. She had been caught, and I had never been more certain of anything in my life. I leaned back on the bed, folding my arms across my chest, watching her squirm. I couldn't help but feel a cold satisfaction that she was the one now on the receiving end of the betrayal, even though she had spent months making me feel like I was the problem. The tables had turned, and she had no idea how to react. "David," she whispered, her voice barely audible. What are you talking about?" I didn't flinch. I didn't break eye contact. "The guy you've been texting. The one who thinks I'm some sort of idiot. You think I didn't notice? You think I didn't know that you were flirting with him, letting him bash me while you're still wearing that damn ring on your finger?" Her face flushed with a mixture of guilt and anger. I didn't mean for it to go this far. It was just harmless fun, just someone to talk to when things weren't going right between us. "Harmless fun?" I repeated, a laugh escaping my lips that I instantly regretted. "You're calling what you did harmless? You have no idea what harmless even looks like, Emily." She looked down, avoiding my gaze. I could see her hands trembling in her lap. The woman who had once been the center of my life, the one I had fought for, protected, and trusted, was now unraveling before me. She wasn't the same person I had married. I wasn't sure she ever had been. "I didn't want this," she murmured, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just needed someone to talk to. Someone who understood me. Someone who could make you feel good about yourself," I countered. "Someone who could give you attention when I wasn't enough for you anymore, huh? You didn't think about me once, about our son, when you were letting this guy get under your skin. You didn't think about anything but yourself." Her eyes filled with tears now, but I wasn't moved. She had crossed a line, and I was done pretending like she hadn't. "I've given you everything, Emily," I continued, my voice steady but cold. "I've sacrificed my career for you. I've taken every single step to make sure you're okay, your health, our family, everything. And this is what you give me in return? Lies, betrayal." I stood up, pacing back and forth across the room. My hands were shaking, but I wasn't sure if it was from rage or the rush of adrenaline coursing through me. I had finally said everything I needed to say, and now, I was ready to make my move. I had been planning this 4 days, ever since I saw those texts. Emily thought she was going to walk all over me. She had no idea that the game was far from over. "You don't get to play the victim here, Emily," I said, finally stopping in front of her. "Not anymore. This marriage is over." Her face crumpled as she started to speak again, but I cut her off. "No, don't try to make it about you now. I'm not the one who broke this. I've done everything to hold us together, and you've been too busy breaking us down. This is on you." I pulled my phone from my pocket, showing her the last few texts from David, the ones where she had told him how unhappy she was in our marriage, how I didn't care about her, how I was too focused on work to notice her needs. "I've kept my mouth shut for a long time, hoping things would change," I said, my eyes narrowing. "But you're too far gone, and now, I'm done." She stared at the phone, her tears falling freely now. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave me, don't leave Maximum. I need you." You don't need me," I said bluntly. "You need someone who will put up with your lies. I'm not that guy. I'm done with you, and when I leave here tonight, I'm not coming back. Don't even think about trying to contact me." I could see the shock in her eyes, the disbelief, the horror of realizing that she had lost it all. I couldn't even muster any sympathy for her anymore. Maybe I would have once, but not now, not after everything. "I'm going to file for divorce," I added, the words coming out more matter of fact than I intended. "And when I do, you'll have to figure out how to explain this mess to Maximum. But don't think for 1 second that I'm going to be the one to make this easy for you." She collapsed back onto the bed, sobbing uncontrollably now, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I wasn't the one who had shattered everything we had built together. "I'm leaving, Emily," I said firmly, "and this time, it's for good." As I turned to walk out, I saw her reach out toward me, but I ignored it. I wasn't going to be her safety net anymore. Not after all the lies, the deceit, the betrayal. I was done. The door slammed behind me with a finality that echoed in my mind as I walked down the hallway, heading for the exit. I had one last thing to do before I could truly move on. I needed to make sure Emily understood the consequences of her actions. The next day, I filed for divorce, and just like that, my life began again. It wasn't going to be easy, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I wasn't going to be anyone's fool. I had been through the worst, and now, I was going to build something better. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free.